So good day, Sir Revan. I'm Rachel Joyty Antero from BSTM3B, and for today I'm going to discuss about analyzing inflation, influence toward the number of foreign tourists visiting Indonesia, and their impact on Indonesia's economic growth. So this research was conducted to determine whether or not there was an effect of inflation on the number of foreign tourists visiting Indonesia and Indonesia's economic growth in 2010 to 2018. The two variables were analyzed because they were considered to have the greatest contribution to the Indonesia's economic growth. The analysis technique used is explanatory research with quantitative data analysis. Data analysis was carried out by descriptive analysis and multiple linear regression analysis assisted by Gretel program. So I will discuss first the background of the study. Nowadays, tourism is not only enjoyed by the rich but will become a necessity for all levels of society. Furthermore, tourism has even grown to become one of the largest industry in the world, which is characterized by, among others, the development of the number of tourist visits and income derived from international tourists. Based on a report from World Tourism Organization, total tourist arrivals around the world in the late 2000s have almost reached 1 billion people per year. Today, the role of the tourism industry is increasingly important for the national economy. Throughout 2018, the tourism sector contributed foreign exchange of 14.11 billion US dollar from year to year. The number tend to rise. In 2017, foreign exchange tourism reached 13.1 billion US dollar. Previously in 2016 amounted to 11.2 billion US dollar, and in 2015 amounted to 10.76 billion US dollar. Sources of tourism foreign exchange revenue come from flights, hotels, restaurant, and products of micro and small and medium enterprises. This sector also absorbs a large workforce so that it can improve the economy of the community. Of the total foreign exchange of 17.6 billion US dollar, the government estimates that the number of foreign tourists reaches 20 million visits a year. The target rose 20.48% from the last year's achievement of only 16.6 million visits. Inflation is an increase in the price of goods and services in general and continuously. A higher price of level causes a demand for money to rise. The increasing quantity of money demand, while there is no change in the money supply side, will cause the interest rate to rise and result in a decrease in investment spending. So in addition, the existence of a central bank plays a role important in controlling inflation in Indonesia with its monetary policy, which includes interest rate policy, exchange rate policy, mix of microprudential and monetary policies, and monetary policy communication. So next one is gross domestic product or GDP. Is a brief description of the prosperity of a country. It can gauge economic growth because assessing whether the economy is doing well or poorly can be seen through the total income that everyone in the economy is earning. In addition, GDP measures total income and total expenditure at once. Income must be equal with expenditure because transaction has two parties encompassing a buyer and a seller. So next one is tourism has several meanings based on expertise. According to Republic of Indonesia, Law number 9 of 1990 concerning tourism, tourism is everything related to tourism including the exploitation of objects and attractions as well as businesses related to the field. Law number 10 of 2009 on tourism stated that tourism is various kinds of tourism activities and supported by facilities and services provided by the local community fellow tourists, government, local government, and entrepreneurs. Aside from that, based on World Tourism Organization, they have different definition regarding tourism, which is human activity that travels to and lives in a destination outside of its daily environment. So, based on the data from the Ministry of Tourism, foreign exchange earnings from the tourism sector in 2015 reached 12.23 billion US dollar, equivalent to 169 trillion. This number is ranked fourth as the biggest contributor of foreign exchange in 2015, under oil and gas, coal and oil palm. Then in 2019, foreign exchange and income from tourism is targeted at 20 billion US dollar and is the biggest to beat the results of oil and gas exports. To achieve this target, the government is targeting 20 million foreign tourist visits in 2019. So this research uses a quantitative analytical method with an explanatory research approach, which is about an event regarding causal relations. The data in this study was in the form of secondary data, and it was taken from the websites of Bank Indonesia, the Central Statistics Agency, and Ministry of Tourism of Republic Indonesia. The data used in this study is a quarterly time series of data from the first quarter of the period of to 2010, fourth quarter of 2018. Data analysis was carried out by descriptive analysis and multiple linear regression analysis, assisted by the Gretel program. So next one, let's discuss about the result and discussion of the data. So this study has three variables which will be presented in the data, which are economic growth as a dependent variable, inflation, and total foreign tourists visiting Indonesia as independent variables, which will be described as follows. So let's go to figure 2, which is graph of Indonesia's inflation for 2010 to 2018. It can be seen that the number of foreign tourists visiting Indonesia during the study period tends to inflation is the increase in the prices of goods and services over time. From the picture, we can see that the inflation rate fluctuated during the period of the study year. At the beginning of the study period in 2010, the inflation rate tended to be low, which was in the range of 3%, and at the end of the period, also around that value. The highest inflation value was in 2013 and the lowest value was in 2018. Let's jump to the figure 3, graph of the number of foreign tourists to Indonesia for 2010 to 2018. So it is a picture of the number of foreign tourists during the study period increased. Based on the data from Ministry of Tourism, the highest number of tourists in the third quarter of 2018 and the lowest value in 2016. It was the beginning of the year of research. And next one is the figure 4, graph of the economic growth of Indonesia for 2010 to 2018. So the economic growth variable is proxied by gross domestic product or GDP. GDP is one method for calculating national income. From the graph above, it can be seen that Indonesia's economic growth during the study period also tends to increase. Same as the graph of the number of foreign tourists, the highest number of tourists in the third quarter of 2018 and the lowest value in 2016. So from table 1, it could be seen that inflation has a p-value of 0.0046, which is less than sign 0.05. This means that inflation affects the number of foreign tourists visiting Indonesia. This equation for the linear regression model is generated as follows: y equals 15.0840 to 0.0733750 inflation. R squared of inflation to the number of foreign tourists visiting Indonesia is 0.213091 or 21.3091%. It means that inflation factors affect the number of foreign tourists by 21%, and the remaining 79% is influenced by other factors. According to this statistical result, we can conclude that inflation has a significantly negative effect on the number of foreign tourists visiting Indonesia. It proves that assumptions from the previous research that price is one factor of tourist consideration to visit in one country. The higher of prices in one country, the lowest of the amount of the tourist will be. So next table is table 2. So from table 2, it could be seen that inflation has a p-value of 0.3952, which is more than the sign 0.05. This means that inflation did not significantly affect GDP. The equation for the linear regression model is generated as follows. Y equals 1.84492 to negative 0.00347550 inflation. R squared of inflation to GDP is 0.021341 or 2.1341%. It means that inflation factors affect the number of foreign tourists only 2.1%, and the remaining 97.9% is influenced by other factors. Based on this equation, the relationship between inflation and GDP is negative. Based on that statistical result, it can conclude that economic growth is not affected by inflation. There are several factors that could have effect on economic growth. So next one is table 3. So table 3 can be seen that the p-value for inflation is 0.0873, which is more than the sign level, which is 0.05. It means that inflation did not have significant effects on GDP. Whether the number of foreign tourists visiting Indonesia has a p-value less than 0.0001 means that variable has a very significant effect on GDP. The simultaneously effect could be seen from the p-value for the F-test. The result is 1.9306, which is less than the sign level. It can be concluded that the both variables simultaneously have a significant effect on GDP. The equation for the linear regression model is generated as follows. Y equals negative 0.00468169 plus 0.055217, 6 inflation plus 0.122620, the number of total tourists. The R squared is relatively high. It is 0.549486 or 54.9486%. Both independent variables could determine the effect on GDP, while the rest 45.0514% is affected by another factor. Both independent variables have positive effect on GDP. So let's go to the conclusion and suggestion of this study. So this study successfully proved the hypothesis formed that the number of foreign tourists visiting influences economic growth. In addition, it is also proven that the factor of price increases will affect the number of foreign tourists visiting. Based on the statistical result, it can be seen that the factor of the number of tourists proved to have a very significant positive effect. So the government needs to pay more attention to the tourism sector. Many things can be done to increase national income in the tourism sector, apart from what the government has done regarding the improvement of infrastructure and facilities, increasing the number of tourist destinations, as well as providing convenience for businesses. In the tourism sector, it is believed that it will provide a greater multiplier effect on this field. Regarding inflation factors that have a proven negative effect on the number of foreign tourists visit, the government needs to control national inflation even better. Instruments carried out by central banks such as quantitative and qualitative policies to control inflation must be carried out as much as possible. Given the tourism sector is proven to be able to contribute large amount of foreign exchange, domestic prices, which are one of the factors for visiting foreign tourists, should not experience an alarming increase. The higher the price increase of domestic goods, the lower the number of foreign tourists visiting in Indonesia and vice versa. To conclude this presentation, I can say that this study or this research really shows or present reliable data or reliable information regarding on what they want to study. So this research provides a statistical measurement which we can rely on. So, in addition, I can say that there are different factors that may affect economic growth of a certain country. So that those factors may affect the tourism sector even though it is a small effect or large effect. So it is important that tourism sector must focus on those different factors that possibly affect the tourism sector, since tourism industry is focusing on reaching the satisfactions or expectation of each tourist. That would be all, and thank you so